Hello and welcome to the next episode of Two Girls Talk Transit. Today we're reviewing the astrology from November 9th through November 15th, 2025, and we're your host. I'm Maddie.
And I'm Kaylee.
So welcome back. We have actually a really short week this week. We had a really busy week last week with the
hmm
full moon. And then this week we do not have a lot of aspects, but then the last 2 weeks of November will pick up again. So you'll see. But we will start off on Sunday, November 9th, as Mercury over in Sagittarius is going to station retrograde. So we had talked a lot about that's coming up. So it'll be there right around 6 degrees, almost 7 degrees. And it
hmm
will start its month-long retrograde. It'll be about 2.5 weeks of retrograde motion. And it will station direct at the very end of November. So it's like this entire theme of November. And the first part of it is in Sagittarius, where it is in its detriment and it is ruled or it's with Mars. And I don't know. I mean, like the traditional Mercury retrograde themes of like misunderstandings, mismessages, or having to redo things are going to be really loud. But also, like, I felt like when we had the Mercury retrograde and like it was like Virgo, um, it was very literal Mercury stuff, like the wrong word was said or like the wrong message was sent. Like it was very real Mercury things. But then like with Mercury on the other end of its like side in a Jupiter ruled side, like I wonder if this Mercury retrograde is going to be more about like just like wrong beliefs or like bigger things are wrong instead of like little tiny things that Mercury tends to rule. Like this message was sent wrong or this one point in this data graph is wrong, right? Like that would be like Mercury retrograde in like Virgo and Gemini. And then when you put it in a Jupiter ruled sign where things are bigger, it's like really big things are wrong. Like the entire thesis of this project is actually needs to be reworked, or like the entire purpose of everything that we're doing needs to be reevaluated. And I don't know. I think it will be kind of significant. How do you think about that? Mercury here in
Yeah.
Sag.
Yeah, that stressed me out actually. Like thinking about like the whole big thing could be wrong, but I think there is like some validity to what you're saying. Like as Jupiter rules like larger topics and expansive ideas, like I could definitely see that. And I think things will I think there will be a specific focus on like people's beliefs, like what do you believe? What do you not believe? And especially like reviewing maybe like our beliefs with people. We are very much, maybe other cultures are like this, but we're very much like a belief-centered culture.
Mm-hmm.
And we really kind of, um, how do you say, like ostracize people that don't have the same beliefs as we do. So I could definitely see there being like just misalignments or misunderstandings in regards to like what people believe and making that like say something about who they are as a person. Um, yeah, so
Well, it's like our beliefs shape our day to day or like our micro interactions, right? Like the macro environment shapes our micro interactions, right? So like if we believe, let's pull out some example here. Like if we believe that within our neighborhood or within our community that like everyone in good faith will support each other through challenging times. And so
right.
like that's your belief. And so a Mercury retrograde in Virgo would be like, oh, the food that I gave to Sarah, she didn't give it back to me. That was rude. Like a minor interaction within the big belief of the community support, right? That would be like a
Right.
Mercury retrograde in Virgo. But then a Mercury retrograde in Jupiter or like in a Jupiter rule sign in Sagittarius would be like, the entire community doesn't want to do this anymore. Like,
Mm-hmm.
or like, half of the towns moved out, and now there's all these new families, and they're not in the same mindset as we are. So what do we do? Like it's like a bigger impact of like your whole environment versus just like these smaller things that get messed up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It'll definitely be interesting to like see the difference between when it was in Virgo and then now when it's ruled by Jupiter, like how
Yeah.
that Mercury retrograde like different like pans out differently. Yeah, so it will be in Sagittarius for part of it, but it will also retrograde back into Scorpio. So we have a revisitation of some of the themes that Mercury and Scorpio brought up. Mercury and Scorpio was hanging out with Mars and Scorpio for like a long time, like not a long time, but like a period of time. So I think Mercury at one point might have gotten like convoluted, like you might not really understand its singular meaning because of how it was like dancing around with Mars, and it will also make an interaction with Mars again. And we'll talk about that later, but just talking about like Mercury retrograde in general, we will have like a revisitation of ideas of like in Sagittarius and also ideas of the Scorpio themes that were brought up. And we could really have some like unveiling of truths, something that we had missed before, coming back around to say, hey, you missed me, you know,
Yeah, because Mars is not going to move back into Scorpio, but Mercury
right?
will. And like that will be a moment where Mercury will just kind of be in Scorpio. Well, not by itself. It's going to be with Venus when it's in Scorpio. Venus is going to make it
Right.
to the end of Scorpio. So like that's going to be a very different energy. It is going to be very interesting, but it'll probably make that area of a life a little bit better. Like if Mars and Mercury had stirred up a lot of conflict or like made that space like confrontational and like spicy in whatever way, then Mercury retrograding back is like the apology, with Venus there too. Like, actually, I did mean all of that. Like, I had good intentions and this was the reason for why. But, like, can we come to some compromise, or can we come to some mutual agreement that we'll stop harming each other in this way or whatever?
Yeah, that's a good point. And it's actually nice to like know that Mercury will have an interaction with Venus like during its retrograde
Right.
period because that is like hopeful, like hopeful like the Mercury retrograde won't be like, taking apart everything or like destroying everything. Like you'll realize that it was actually purposeful or like it's a good thing or, like you said, it comes in the form of like an apology or like
Mm-hmm.
you're getting consoled in some way.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, cool. Anything else you want to say about that?
No, let's move on.
Okie dokie. The next one we have is we also have another planet moving retrograde on the 11th of November. Jupiter will turn retrograde. I think it's a little bit later in the day. It hasn't quite moved retrograde here, but still holds its significance. So Jupiter has been in Cancer since June 10th, and it spends about 6 months and then turns retrograde. Um, yeah, so we will have some kind of review of the Cancer house too. We have this period, and it's interesting that it's happening it's not really interesting. I mean, it probably happens a lot, but in the winter time, this like review period, period where we go back and look over things that maybe we have done during the summer months or like late springtime. Um, yeah, and just like an opportunity to kind of go back and check things out. In Cancer, yeah, just I would honestly like personally, I would look to where Cancer rules in your chart and see like what Jupiter has been expanding and how maybe that's going to be reviewed in some way. So, like for me, Jupiter rules my third house. So, I mean, not rules my third house, is in my third house of Cancer. Um, there has been a lot of themes about like driving. I like drove a lot. My job like was requiring me to drive all over the place. And the third house is like very much short trips and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And my sisters have become like a really big part of my everyday experience. So maybe Jupiter moving retrograde in Cancer is like, returning to those themes in some way. Maybe I decide, I've been driving for a while. I don't want to do that anymore. Or like, um, maybe I decide, I'm going to start hanging out with somebody different than my sisters all the time or something. It's just like some kind of review of that. So, yeah. What do you want to add?
Yeah, so I agree with all of that, but I also think it's bigger than that because it is also Jupiter's ruling Mercury that had just stationed retrograde two
Right,
days
true.
ago.
Yeah.
Right. And then Jupiter's also ruling the Mars that's in Sagittarius. Jupiter's also ruling the North Node in Pisces, Saturn in Pisces, and Neptune in Pisces, who are
Oh
both
my God, a lot
retrograde.
of Jupiter ruled. Yeah.
Exactly. And Jupiter too is in a trine with Saturn. Now, granted, I don't think it ever goes exact because of the timing of their two retrogrades, but they're
It's
both at
pretty
25
close. Yeah.
yeah, they're both at 25 degrees. So the minutes are going to be off because I think that's where I think it's never going to go exact, or maybe it does later. But anyways, like this is like it was such a Jupiter moment, right? With Jupiter going retrograde. It's like it's not just Jupiter in your Cancer house or your Cancer area of your life. It is Jupiter and Saturn. It is Jupiter and Mercury. It is Jupiter and Mars. And like it's hitting almost all these places in our lives, but really specifically in like Pisces and Sagittarius are also going to be brought up into this retrograde. So it's like this really big moment of significant review of like it's hard to keep going back and saying beliefs, but like is it not your beliefs? Like it's like your foundation, it's like your philosophy of like why does the life exist in this order? Like
Hmm.
why do I do the existential things that I do every day? What is the purpose of all of this? And it's like it's hitting your mind with Mercury's review. It's hitting your actions, like you're kind of reviewing your actions too, and like how you're fighting for what you believe in or how you're not. And it's reviewing like your structures and your responsibilities. Like there's just this very Jupiter's just holding a lot in the sky right now. And then
Hmm.
its
Hmm.
retrograde station is really going to show that, like, oh, we need to get serious about this. Like, are you clear on what you've been expanding and believing in your day-to-day life? Like, yes, your third house has expanded, so like your day-to-day travel has expanded and your relationships with your sisters have expanded. In what way have those moments of expansion also helped you shift your beliefs on your finances and your debt and also your larger community in a whole,
Hmm.
and like those bigger interactions with people, like it's a very Jupiterian thing to be like talking about this in this so abstract way, but like I also just think that's like what's happening. It's like a little bit of this like existential reflection moment crisis.
Yeah, that's super interesting that you caught on to that. We do have like so much being ruled by Jupiter right now. So yeah, it is maybe calling us to think more existentially, maybe like larger and bigger and um realizing how parts of life are not like cannot necessarily be extracted, like they all weave together in some way.
Right.
Um, yeah, so it's super interesting. We have lots going on in the Jupiter ruled houses, Sag, Pisces, and then Jupiter being in Cancer, and that, also the water houses too. Pisces,
Yeah.
Scorpio, and Cancer. So there's a lot going on.
The last thing too is just like we didn't have a lot of interactions this week, but like that moon is there in Leo right now on this day on it's Tuesday, yeah, the 11th.
Yeah.
So it's in that like last quarter square where you're already kind of tend to be thinking a little bit more existentially anyway, or like
Yeah.
really evaluating your mind and your decisions. And so like there just seems to be a moment where this week, with everything going retrograde, with Mercury going retrograde, now Jupiter, it's like potentially something can kind of drop, like something could fall apart, especially with Mercury retrograde, like information could fall apart, or like knowledge could fall apart, or just like the truth, right? Here's the answer. The truth of everything can fall apart. And then
Yeah.
what comes up within you, like that's like this pattern that you got to work through. It's like this very internal, potentially internal, but probably internal, like reckoning within yourself of like, what is your truth and like, what are you going to fight for and what matters, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I think it would be
Yeah.
cool to like look at, the link between Jupiter and Cancer and Sag and Pisces. Like just pulling those all together and looking like how have all these like parts of life been impacted over the course of like the past 6 months since June. Um,
Yeah. And like evaluating
yeah, like not looking at it singularly, but looking at it like,
like how they're all connected in some sort of story right now. I mean, I can
yeah,
kind of see it myself. I've been very alone this year. I mean, like
right.
not
You've been
like
spending a lot of time with friends though.
friends, but like I lived a lot of like I do have a lot of friend dates, but like my day-to-day life is very lonely. And
Yeah.
but that has led to exploration and expansion and creativity and movement, which is the fifth house for me of like creating and then seeking friends from that way.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't know, my eighth house has just been very more I've been very responsible in my eighth. I've had to provide.
Yeah,
So
for
like,
yourself. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that would all connect, but like there is this moment where, there's like those parts of your life are getting louder, at least this week, is the way to
Yeah,
put it.
for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, and this will be like another 6 month ordeal, or how many months is it? November, December, January, February, March. Five, four
Five
months. Five, 4 or 5, yeah. It
would be five,
goes
yeah.
direct again March 10th. So we'll be
Right.
hanging out here with Jupiter retrograde for a pretty significant period of time.
Right. I think we'll notice the most like the initial shift this week, but then you'll get used to it and it won't be that big of a deal.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. For sure.
All
Cool.
right. The last aspect for this week is just then on the next day, on Wednesday, is Mercury in retrograde, and Sagittarius is gonna meet Mars. So this is where we were like back in October 19th is when the first time that happened in Scorpio.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we were talking about it, and it was kind of weird because it was like they had conjuncted, and then Mercury went into a shadow period. So we're not getting three hits, we're only getting these two hits, which is, more unique in astrology in general. But I think this interaction is just heavily kind of speaking to everything we've been talking to about. It's just going to make this big evaluation within yourself, like, oh, and the moon is squaring Uranus today. That's great. Um,
That it is. Yep.
I think it's like you're having this big inner moment and reflection about, again, your beliefs and like what the bigger truth of your life is and why are you doing this? Why are you taking these actions? Why is this happening? What is the foundation of everything? And then Mars is going to make you really want to like either fight for your beliefs and be more vocal. Like I feel like we could see people this week like doubling down and like, being more aggressive about what they want to believe in and what they want to fight for. Or maybe you realize that you need to cut away from one of these truths, like this truth is no longer truthing. It's no longer resonating with you and you're not having the same kind of relationship with it anymore. Maybe it's time to separate from that. And that can also be Jupiter retrograding, being like, now how do you cope when you don't have that truth anymore? Like how do you
Mm-hmm.
nurture yourself when you cut that away?
For sure. I think this could really also be symbolic of like how the bigger picture is made up of nothing but the small details and like small actions,
Mhm.
especially with like, these like Mercury, the planet of details, coming into interaction with Mars, the planet of doing. It's like in this Jupiter ruled space, it's like you realize maybe like your life is made up of nothing more than the small things you decide to do all the time. And
Right.
maybe I think you're having a review of like, what are these small things that I'm doing all the time that are making up the larger picture of who I am and,
Mm.
of what my life is. And it's like, these big, broad ideas that, maybe you don't take the time because we're creatures of habit. Like we're very much like ruled by these habitual things that we do. So we don't really take the time to like stop and move with intention. So, if anything, I think that maybe Mercury in Sag retrograde is like asking us to be a bit more intentional and a bit less like robotic. As like, I feel like Mercury and Jupiter, like Mercury and Gemini is like you do it because it has to be done and it's like part of the checklist and you don't really think about it. Like it's
Yeah.
just like what you got to do. But Mercury and Sag, I feel like is like, wait a second, like am I doing this? Like what's the greater purpose of me doing these things? Um, so yeah, I think it could very much be like that kind of moment.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is a very big moment where there is just a lot of like really exact, yeah, like it just going into your mind and like really evaluating like this like whole reasoning behind everything and like what and are your smaller actions aligning with your bigger vision or are they not? And then like, I do feel like at least a good thing with Mercury retrograde and Mars here is that it really will show you that, it's not aligning or it is aligning. So,
Right, yeah. I mean, either way it brings like clarity. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And I think,
But
you'll be able to reflect on like, oh, this is why that happened or why this happened. I think like maybe Mercury and Sag is like a bit more soothing than it is overthinking. It's like being able to like reflect on like there's a purpose for everything.
yeah. Yeah, you
Yeah.
just might miss like small details. That's the only
For
thing.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can miss like little nuggets of information. That's the only negative thing. It's like you're
Yeah.
not paying attention to like, oh yes, it's a great idea. We should totally do it. But there was like one line in that contract that said that you have to pay $20 every time you go out to eat or something. I don't know, just like ridiculous. Like you miss
Yeah.
that, and then that's annoying.
Well, it's like, that like for example, like a Jupiterian person would be like, the guy who went and did like an ayahuasca adventure for like 2 weeks. And then his mind is so expanded that he like can't do the everyday day-to-day things. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, that's not what life's about. Life's
It's
about
like we made
like,
this all up. It's a
yeah,
construct. We don't have to do it. It's like, yes, but we've all agreed to this construct, so you actually do
right.
have to participate.
Yeah, like if you don't do the daily things, like you're gonna just dissipate
Yeah.
into the void. I don't know, but it's in some way you have to play the part. So I guess, that you might be realizing like these big things, but you also have to hold two truths at once that we also have to, be a part of society in some way.
I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah. I don't know. It'll be interesting. Little moment here. And then it will kind of set the stage for the next couple of weeks when we're gonna have like a really big new moon and like a lot more drama. So it is gonna be this moment where I feel like we're gonna feel okay, we're shifting a bit.
for sure. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know, kind of like big things happening, but kind of quiet at the same time. It's kind of an odd,
Right. With
yeah.
the moon, like I that's why I do think it will be a little bit more of like an internal processing
Mm-hmm.
first.
Mm-hmm.
And then
For
maybe
sure.
towards the end of the week and like you'll start to be seeing it directly manifest in your life too.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. That's all for this week though. But if you want more content from us, you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Two Girls Talk Transits, and we'll be back for next week.
Bye.